So I'm a big believer in the power of capitalism to improve lives. The free market is a fantastic thing, except if you're in New York, you want to buy a 17-ounce Coke, that's not possible. But I'm a fan of Mayor Bloomberg. But where the free market is allowed to operate, it's agile, it's creative, it can meet demands that bureaucrats would never see. It's really why, the primary reason why we've had increased living standards. And so for many things, if you want to make a global impact, it's hard to imagine a better place to do it than in the private sector. I firmly believe that anything the private sector can do, it should do. It has great feedback mechanisms. It works very well. But there are some things that the private sector does not handle. Back in 1993, Melinda and I took a trip to Africa. And as she mentioned, it was our first encounter with deep poverty. And when we came home, we couldn't forget it. We were kind of intrigued. What was going on? Why were they in essentially a poverty trap? Having lots of kids, couldn't get enough nutrition for the kids, not enough education for the kids, very high level of disease. And so we started reading. And we found out about diseases that we'd never heard of. And found out that millions of kids a year were dying from malaria, hepatitis B, yellow fever. One disease was killing 500,000 kids a year, not in the United States, but in the poor countries. And so we asked, well, what was being done about this? Someone must be working on it. And in fact, we found out that no one was. And this is an area where I think philanthropy can and should step in. You could almost think of it as catalytic philanthropy. The wonderful thing about this type of philanthropy is that it has the high-stakes feel of the private market, but it transcends those limitations. And the magic of philanthropy is it throws off the constraint that the return needs to come to the funder. And so you can still go for as big a win as you would in the private sector. You can still hire great people. You can still set very ambitious goals. For Melinda and I, the innovation to create new vaccines and make sure they got out to all of the world's children became one of those goals. We saw that vaccines that were used in rich countries for diseases that were not very widespread were not available to poor children. Typically, it was taking over 30 years before a new vaccine would move from the rich countries to the poor countries where the need was actually, in almost all cases, at least 10 times as large. But we decided we needed to draw in the pharmaceutical companies. We needed to have incentives to get them involved. We looked at, in some cases, we guaranteed purchases of drugs that would meet a certain poor profile. We did co-funding for research. In some cases, we had to take on all of the early research, but then as it reached a certain stage of proof of concept, we were able to bring in the private sector. More than we ever expected, we worked together with governments. We helped them look at their aid budget and help them to be more numbers-driven in terms of, okay, what type of aid can make a big difference? And certainly for the delivery of these tools, that's made a huge difference because over 80% of the delivery is funded by these foreign aid budgets. On the research front, we're very optimistic that we'll have a number of new vaccines. We already have one for meningitis. In a few years, we ought to have one for malaria. To move on to another area, which is one we got into just because of the resources that we had after Warren's phenomenal gift, we started looking at, once you improved health, what was the next catalytic factor? And the answer we came up with was agriculture, food, allowing farmers with small amount of land to grow enough to feed their family and to have some extra income. Whatever cause you pick, philanthropy is a very personal decision. I think the diversity of philanthropy, just like the diversity of capitalistic entrepreneurs, is a key source of its strength. You know, we should never try and homogenize it. We should never try and have the government rank it in any way, because the wild ideas are often the most important. Even when Melinda and I knew that we wanted to give our money away, we had a time period where we didn't have anything that really grabbed us. But when we learned about vaccines, when we saw that wasn't being done, that really launched us. It was a few years after that that we really created the foundation and got things going. And you know, that enthusiasm, I think, will stay with us for the rest of our lives. And I think it's that kind of, you know, why is this happening? Why isn't this different? Things that grab you like that are really the things that drive you to do what's most important. So, you know, I think for all of us, going out, seeing where life is tough, and finally seeing something where you say it's just wrong, you want to change it, and when you do see even the beginnings of that change, you feel it's phenomenal, that's the path that'll really get us to all do our best work, whether it's social services, education, the arts, you know, anything that really grabs you can be an incredible passion, and it can be a lot of fun. And you know, you get rid of that constraint. You don't have to be paid back personally. You simply have to see the large benefit that's taking place. So it's fulfilling, it's humbling, and from my vantage point, it's the most interesting job I've ever had a chance to do. Thank you.